Hello, YouTube. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If you guys have been noticing, we've been keeping up with almost you asked, we answered pretty much every day, roughly, or every other day. We've been trying to keep it up to that level. If you guys don't know, I'm actually the one that like takes it, edits it, and then throws it back up there. And I still do this while working a full-time job, and still do this with like everything, trying to stream and whatnot. So it can get chaotic at times, and I apologize. Which means it also affects my like energy levels. So throwing that out there just so that you guys know is like why is this energy up and down and all over the place? It's life, man. Life happens too fast. But with that being said, this is gonna be the third you asked we answered, or for the Filipinos they get really scared. Uh Yawa. But let's just go into it. This one's gonna be really so it quite literally doesn't have a subject, it just says this. My girlfriend still talks with their ex because he says he will hurt himself if she doesn't. It's really affecting her mental health, but I'm not sure how I can help her. That's a that's an oofer, man. Um, so first off, I'm pretty sure that all of us, at some point or another, if you're in a relationship or not, at least in the past, you've encountered. Yeah, that's a rough one. You've encountered a friend talking to someone that you wish they didn't talk to, or a loved one, or a girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, whatever they may be, doing that, and it can fucking hurt. I'm gonna be straight up with you. It can fucking hurt in many different ways. Here's the first thing I'm gonna go ahead and ask you. Aside from, because it sucks when you see them like their mental health start declining, your partner's mental health start declining because of a previous partner. But how do you feel about it, right? Because one thing is, a lot of individuals can be very secure of themselves and say, you know what, I don't mind that they're talking with the partner, but yet, seeing the mental health side, they actually start to worry. Or it could also be that, hey, you know what, I'm actually don't like this. And that's a perfectly okay boundary to have, you know. I think that that's one of the number one priorities that I pretty much always say, and check and correct me if I'm wrong, to practice self care and put up boundaries. So when we're talking about something like this, you have to be able to go ahead and put up your boundaries. You have to be able to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Like, let's see if he has any natural supports. I think this is one way that you can go ahead and approach this. See if he has any natural supports, i.e., family, i.e., other friends, right? Um, and have her or like talk to her and be like, hey, this is a boundary. It's getting to a point where I'm uncomfortable because it's affecting your mental health. And at the same time, it's also starting to take a toll on me as well because now you're worrying as well, right? So, put that boundary up and be like, hey, I don't like that, communication is still happening and it's now starting to hurt you. So why don't we go ahead and look for his natural supports, talk to him about what's happening, because at this point it can start to be manipulation almost instantly. Uh, Chat, have you guys encountered something like this? And if so, what have you guys done? So that way you guys can see it's not only me, everyone has encountered a situation similar to something like this. But I'm going to 100% agree with this. Is like when you encounter a scenario like this, reach out to the natural support, friends, family, whoever you can, explain to them sort of the situation that's happening and why you guys need to step back. This is where that big like wall has to come in and be like, hey, you know what? He's an ex, yeah, he can still be important, but he needs to take care of himself before he can have healthy communication habits, be able to actually create healthy relationships, be able to maintain himself. Maybe later on, when the individual's in a healthier state of mind, they might be able to go ahead and like communicate, right? I feel like that's probably one of the most effective things that you can go ahead and do. And just remember this, because if you're uncomfortable at any point in your relationship, or you start seeing that your partner's health, physical, mental, emotional health starts deteriorating, it is perfectly okay to bring it up. That is exactly what a relationship is about. You know what? Hey, my girlfriend is having a really shitty day. I can bring it up and be like, "Hey, what's wrong, honey? What's going on? Like, can let's talk about what we can do to get your mental health better." She's like, "Hey, you know what? One of my exes is like constantly texting me. I'm in contact with him. You know him. It's starting to really affect me. What do I do?" Right? If it if you give this advice and you're like, hey, natural supports everything, and she still doesn't back down, it's gonna be a really hard ride for you. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. And I think this is what YAWAs are for. This is why it's a friendly advice and whatnot. If you give all of this advice and you're talking about setting up your boundaries and being able to take your situation away, your relationship away from a toxic situation, which can, it seems like it's already developed, and they don't want to go ahead and back away from that, then you as a grown up, and this is going to sound pretty hard. You might care about your significant other 110%, but if they're more invested in an ex than they are in the relationship and they're not willing to set boundaries, you deserve better. So it's up to you to go ahead and take that however you will, do whatever you want. But just remember, if your partner is more invested in a previous relationship than maintaining a boundary or and like working towards a better relationship, not only with themselves but with the potential partner, then yeah, you need to take that into consideration and start thinking about like, would I, if the shoe was in the opposite foot, would they still and I didn't respect the boundaries that they were talking about, would I be okay with that? And it's super. I think it's one of the most important things aspects thrown out there because a lot of people just take relationships into like once I'm in a relationship, that's it, that's game. Like there's nothing else for me to go ahead and like fight for or change or whatever. No, think about a relationship like a contract. This is gonna sound really cold and calculated, but like it's ever evolving, and you should be able to revisit this contract at any point and be like, hey, you know what? What you're doing right now is making me really uncomfortable. How can we work on this together? If you don't want to work on this, I'm gonna take a step back. Queen, king, monarchs, everything. But that's and it's super important. And like I don't know how else to put it. I think all of us have been in a point where we've been in a toxic relationship, a toxic situation, and because we've cared about the other individual, we've forgotten about ourselves in the process. So remember that it was just a simple, I know it was only a couple sentences that you sent me, but it's a really big discussion. And also, don't don't try and force someone to change. This is going to sound weird and contradictory, but there's a difference between, talking about it and them, like someone else agreeing to go ahead and change and put up boundaries and whatnot, and forcing someone to change and giving an ultimatum. Ultimatums almost never work. Yeah, ultimatums usually never work. They always work like in the opposite way that you're thinking. It's going to be extremely toxic. It's almost always going to end up bad. So what's the best option is, talk about it in that way. Be like, hey, you know what? These are my boundaries. This is what I'm comfortable with. This is not what I'm comfortable with. I think, once we reach out to natural supports of his, it's up to them to take care of him because you are an ex, and you got to find out what's more important to you in that choice. But if you decide that it's one, or if you decide that your ex is more important than me, then I'll go ahead and take a step back and you can go ahead and try and fix that or work on that or whatever because I don't want to be second fiddle or I don't want to go ahead and waste my time. Time is valuable, man. Time is really, really valuable. And yes, ultimatums are a big trap, man. Absolutely, Blade Dragon. Ultimatums are one of the biggest traps, and that's the thing is movie culture, society in general. Majority of people keep pushing like, oh, you know what? You should talk to your partner and say it's either my way or the highway. No, it should be like, hey, let's come up with a compromise together. Let's try and work things out. If you guys try to work things out and things don't work out, then you can be like, hey, you know what? I appreciate the fact that we tried, but I'm gonna have to take a step back from our relationship, or we're gonna have to like go our own separate ways because clearly things are toxic between us. They're not working, so on and so forth. But anyway, I hope this really helps you out. I know that like it could be a really tough situation, especially if you're really invested emotionally. But yeah, man, those boundaries are super important. I'm pretty sure anyone else that you would have asked, like, would probably mention something like that. Also, I guess this is just general advice since we're going down this regard. Be wary of who you seek advice from, right? Because sometimes when we go to family, rumors and like can spread instantly, and the advice isn't usually the best because it's always emotionally charged, right? So just be wary of who you ask advice from, and try to think things through as you're going through it. As I said, natural supports, boundaries, and then find out, revisit that contract of what your relationship means because you don't want to be guilt tripped into anything, and I'm pretty sure your girlfriend doesn't want to either. But anyway, I hope this helps. I really appreciate you asking this question. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it for that one. I don't think there's anything else for us to revisit there. All right, another one.